To the UN now. It was a big week at the United Nations. There were oil for food indictments, new allegations that top UN officials may have been bribed by Saddam. John Bolton's nomination as the new U.S. ambassador delayed. Now the Security Council went on the road to Haiti, and we went with them. The members of the council included the American ambassador, Ann Patterson, as well as the Brazilian ambassador who led that trip. They saw the troubled islands for themselves. This, many say, is a real test for the United Nations. The goal, try to have elections in November. The violence there has been increasing. It's claimed hundreds of lives so far. We went on armed patrols that were led by the Brazilians. They've been in shootouts with gang leaders, shot 2 of them, and 3 UN peacekeepers have been shot dead in Haiti in the last 2 weeks. The latest just happened on Thursday. Restoring democracy there is the type of mission that is perfect for the UN, for which it was founded, but have the scandals overwhelmed the world body? Joining us now to talk more about that, Republican Congressman Thaddeus McCotter of Michigan, who is a member of the International Relations Committee investigating oil for food, and John Batchelor, host of the John Batchelor program, which is heard weeknights on ABC Radio, and John reports extensively on the UN. Welcome, both of you. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Thanks. Congressman, let me start with you. Down in Haiti, it's like the UN peacekeepers, they're actually being aggressive. Do you think that all the scandals have had an effect on the world body, on the thinking over there, or is there more to do?
Well, I think that what happens in Haiti with, obviously, the peacekeepers deserve to be commended for their courage and their valor, but they may also be the exception that proves the rule. As you know, Eric, I've talked about the UN. I've compared it to a global Tammany Hall. It's wholly unaccountable, and then when some of its excesses reach the public, what they then do is what every machine known throughout America, be it the Pendergast or the Hague or whatever, is they will deny it. They will then find some way to internally monitor themselves to buy time, come up with a report that exonerates themselves to a certain degree, and then they will try to find something they can do productive that can then distract the public and make it appear as if all is well. I think there's a gross there's a lack of accountability in the UN, and I don't know that any recommendations that we've seen come out of the UN itself are going to lead us to a better day where we can trust that our tax money is being spent wisely.
You know, it's fascinating. You talk about the Volcker report. They do Iqbal Riza and many of the officials that they cite, they're retired. A few are still there, obviously, who have been criticized in the Volcker report. But do you think this is a bit of a setup, that now they can say, well, you know, those people aren't here anymore. We're trying to move on into a new direction?
Well, I think it's easier to shoot the dead than it is to go find the people that are currently in those positions, which goes back to the fact that when you read some of the Volcker report, the thing that I find striking is that while I have a general rule, never mistake incompetence for conspiracy, that doesn't mean there can't be incompetent conspiracies. I think that when you read about how they destroyed documents a day after the report came out and then said they did not connect the 2 events, you can see that why should they run an operation like oil for food where they graft off the top? Why should they do that any more efficiently or productively or beneficially than they do everything else?
You know, John Batchelor, we were down in Haiti, and I was a guest on your program from Port-au-Prince, and what struck me is when you're with the peacekeepers, these aren't the ones standing around doing nothing, having sex with 12-year-old girls. They're out there on the line getting shot at.
Eric, Haiti looks like Chicago under Al Capone. What happened this week with the U.S. Attorney and with a criminal complaint brought by the FBI is that New York now looks like Enron, WorldCom, and I think the United Nations under Kofi Annan. We have bags of cash in New York. You have gunfire in Haiti. These are 2 different stories. I go along with the congressman. Haiti is a distraction, but the UN has to get our credibility back. I mean, the American people. We pay almost a quarter of the bill. Bags of cash, meetings in Manhattan restaurants, bribes being passed internationally. We have documents. The U.S. Attorney knows the names, Eric. This is all ahead of us. This is not behind us.
You talk about bribes, cash. Kofi Annan, his son, of course, Kojo Annan, has been implicated in being involved with one of the contractors, obviously. They deny any wrongdoing. But there's also talk about UN official number 1. Could that be Boutros Boutros-Ghali being bribed?
February, March, and June of '93, UN official number 1 in his apartment and in Geneva. Look at the travel log. Eric, also go to UN official number 2. He has a son. The criminal complaint wanted us to know that it wasn't just a close relative. It was a son who tried to set up a false or a fake or a failed oil company in Canada. Eric, connect the dots. There's one UN official who has a son. Who is he, Eric? Who is he? I do not draw a conclusion. I want to know why the criminal complaint went out of its way to say to us that UN official number 2 didn't just have a close family member, but also a son who was involved in oil for food. Question mark.
The Congressman McCotter, you were very involved in the investigations. Do you think this could implicate high-level UN officials? And then what should happen if it indeed does?
Well, I think it could be, and I hate to comment on that end of it, any criminal wrongdoing, but when you see an organization like that that's run like a machine, in the Volcker report itself, what you saw was the question of when they went to the one contract where Kojo Annan was, and it went without the proper documentation. They overlooked the fact there was a Swiss criminal investigation, and then at the end of the day they said, well, we have no idea how this contract was awarded. It's kind of silly, obviously. If you hire the boss's son, there must have people within the system probably are very well aware of that. I think that what has to happen from my end as a legislator is the only way we put accountability back in the United Nations is by ceasing to put American dollars into it. And when you hear the calls that you hear recently that we must strengthen the UN, that they must have more authority, that they must have more of our money, as you see the euros falling out of the limos as they drive around Manhattan, what you have to say to yourself is, this is insane, this is dysfunctional, this is a drunken sailor coming with his hand out again. While you try to help the drunken, no offense to the sailors, my press secretary is one. But at the end of the day, what you have to look at is how do we make the institution better? Because as a Republican, a closet fan of Franklin Roosevelt, I agree with his vision for the United Nations. I think most Americans do. But what we resent greatly is not just the bashing of us within the UN. It's the fact that the UN has failed to live up to the ideals that were set forward by Franklin Roosevelt and the American people in establishing this organization, and that must end.
Congressman, thank you very much. We're out of time. Let me just 10 seconds for you, John. Do you think Bolton's going to be nominated, passed this week?
I'll play politics. The Republicans have 10 votes, the Democrats have 8. It's a done deal.
All right. John Batchelor of John Batchelor's Radio, also johnbatchelor.com on ABC Radio, and Congressman Thaddeus McCotter of Michigan, who sits on the International Relations Committee. Very tough words on the UN, gentlemen. We thank you both for being here with your insight.